It's time to experience the O on the Original Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Mark Merriday.
Original Sports Podcast with Mark Merriday. My guest today, Josh Brewster, one of the voices behind the Anaheim Ducks. Quack, quack, he's the Duck Calls guy. Post-game show. Josh, how you doing this evening?
Doing just fine. Thanks for having me.
Oh, excited to talk hockey with you. Josh, I know you're a Buffalo guy. Talk a little bit about your involvement growing up in Buffalo, playing hockey, what your MO was up there.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I was born in 66, when my parents moved into the neighborhood in 68 into this new housing development, by 1970, the Sabres began. And I ended up growing up around many of the 70s Sabres. Gilbert Perreault lived 2 blocks away. Danny Gare lived just up the road, and Craig Ramsey lived a block away. Bill Haidt lived 3 blocks away, and I could just go on and on and on. It was really cool because the team was new, and in 1975 they went to the Cup final.
Yeah.
But on a regular basis, we were knocking on the door, ask for autographs. They got so many autographs. They had so many kids coming up to the door that many of them had these little buck slips with their photos on it that they could just sign. And so I grew up around all the 70s Sabres. And, Buffalo is as close to being in Canada as you can get.
Yeah.
And Buffalo is, as much as Minnesota or Boston or anywhere, or more so, Buffalo is America's hockey city. There's no question about it. And there's backyard rinks everywhere. It's a very Canadian kind of atmosphere there when it comes to hockey.
It must be painful then for you to watch what's going on with them, or this season, how this season played out for them.
It's been going on for a long time. And what's too bad about it is, look, when you're the owner, Terry Pegula, everybody's going to give you a hard time, look to the top, all this. The guy cares deeply,
Yeah, he does.
It's so hard to hire the right person. You know what I mean? Like, when I contrast that with, look at the Anaheim Ducks, there almost were not going to be an Anaheim Ducks after Disney sold.
Right.
If it wasn't for the Samuelis, they'd probably have gone to Kansas City or God knows where. So it's about ownership. And then they made one key move. The first move they made was they hired Brian Burke. And, in my view, when you hire a GM, and Pegula has yet to prove that he can hire a GM like this, you got to have a guy who is dead serious about exactly the direction the team's going to go. And so, I hope that the Buffalo Sabres are going to be all right. Maybe Kevin Adams is the guy, but they have to have a very, very clearly defined mission, because remember, this isn't your daddy's NHL where 16 out of 21 teams make it and only 5 are eliminated.
Yeah.
When you're in the cellar, you're in the cellar.
Yeah.
You're not 5 spots from playoffs. You're in the cellar. And so, when it comes to the Buffalo Sabres, hopefully better days are ahead, but they're going to have to get some leaders to surround Eichel, because Eichel's all skill, but he doesn't want to win a lot of one-on-one battles. But you don't want to trade that skill away. If you owe him another $50 million, you could spend $100 million trying to replace it if you trade it away. So you better find some guys who don't take any nonsense. And unfortunately, when they traded away Ryan O'Reilly, they traded away the guy who wasn't going to take any nonsense.
Yeah, I hated the fact that they had Taylor Hall on that team. I did like that they brought in one of the Stahl guys, but they got rid of him right away. I mean, like, as soon as they start moving people, because they could get value, obviously. But I'm not a big Taylor Hall guy myself. I don't know about you, your opinion on him, what you think, but
I think he's on the hot seat now.
Yeah, in Boston.
Oh, he's on the hot seat now, but he's got 29 goals, I think, in the last 135 games. It's questionable whether he elevates the team he goes to. And I think it's really on him, because he's the one who needs another deal. And, good luck getting $8 million. I'm not so sure. He's really on the hot seat. I'll also say this. I know he won the Hart Trophy, and no disrespect intended, But I don't think if Edmonton got Adam Larson, and everybody been laughing at him for years. Go take a look. Adam Larson plays 20 minutes a night for the Edmonton Oilers. Doesn't miss a lot of games. He's been dinged up a couple times, but that wasn't that bad a deal. They could have gotten another draft pick or something, but Taylor Hall has a lot to prove. And, he could turn out, who knows what he'll turn out to be in Boston.
It almost seems to me like he's a cancer in the locker room, that he keeps getting bumped around, not getting to his potential. But, what do I know? I'm just a guy who does a podcast. So let me ask you this question. I know for a fact you were sporting a Detroit Red Wings jersey around, living in the Buffalo area. Okay. Number one, were you a Buffalo fan? And number two, why the Red Wings jersey?
Yeah, I'm always a Buffalo fan. I still follow the Bills. And if the Ducks don't win the Stanley Cup, I hope it's the Sabres, put it that way. The Ducks are A with me. But as a kid, Scotty Bowman traded away Danny Gare, Jim Schoenfeld, Bob Sauvé, and I think it was Derek Smith to the Detroit Red Wings for Mike Foligno, Dale McCourt, and one other. It was a huge deal. And I resented this deal immediately because Danny Gare, I thought, was the best Sabre of them all. And I include Gilbert Perreault. I don't think anybody bled blue and gold like Danny Gare. And I loved him. And so I immediately bought a Danny Gare jersey. And once a week for sure at school, I had that on. And then I had a Reed Larson jersey. And then later on, I had a Steve Yzerman jersey that was signed. And for many years, I was a Red Wings fan. And also, what was interesting? It was an interesting time to follow the Red Wings because they were in the cellar. They were under the cellar when Mike Ilitch bought them.
Yeah. And
Jimmy Devellano came to town and announced, I will not trade any draft picks. And that was really significant because they had traded away and They were like the Kings. They had traded away picks and traded away picks for aging veterans. He put a stop to that. I thought it was a very interesting team to watch. And then he started drafting Steve Yzerman, Bob Probert, Peter Klima, even Stu Grimson, and just on, and Lane Lambert, and then ultimately Nick Lidstrom and Sergei Fedorov, et cetera. They were a very interesting team to watch. And I'm not surprised if you look at Steve Yzerman in Tampa or Steve Yzerman in Detroit now, you can see that he has the Devellano pedigree. And Ken Holland learned at Devellano's feet too. The Red Wings were a very interesting team in the 80s. To follow.
Man, it's just been maybe the last 3 or 4 years that they've fallen on some hard times. I mean, they held the record for how many years making the playoffs and just giving a push every year.
Here's the thing. Free agency changed the game completely, and the salary cap entered you might as well be on another planet now. If you take a look at when the Islanders won 4 cups in a row, when the Edmonton Oilers won 4 in 5 years, when the Montreal Canadiens of the late 70s rattled off cup after cup, the players' rights were retained by the club until they decided to move the player. There's no free agency. So if you look at the number of the New York Islanders, I believe it was, out of the 20 guys on the team, I think 15 or 16 were there for the whole 4 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't like now where you're going to give up this one and you're going to give up this one and give up this one. That's why, by the way, Chicago Blackhawks 3 and 5 years is as impressive as any Canadiens team or any Islanders team or any Oilers team. Yeah. Because they did it in the salary cap age when you lose players immediately, like Dustin Byfuglien or Christopher Stieg. They would have retained them for 10 years if it was the old NHL. So it's a totally different NHL.
You think the money's going to get bigger? I've asked this question in the recent months with a couple other guests. Do you think the money's going to get bigger with ESPN taking over?
Yeah, and once we get past this nightmare of I would say pandemic, actually the nightmare is the lockdown. Once we get past this nonsense, hopefully we'll be all right. I guarantee you this isn't going to work the way it's going now. That's for sure. So we got to pray that we get past this disease and get past this this lockdown.
You think we'll see these same divisions next year, or you think they'll shake it out and go back to the old style?
They'll go back, and then Arizona is going to join the Central, and Seattle will join the Pacific.
That's going to be an interesting move. Hey, speaking of Seattle, you think, in your opinion, do you think Seattle will pull what Vegas pulled, which was come right out of the gates and go to the Cup Finals, or do you think the league's going to be a little bit more stringent on the way they let them develop their team.
No, it's not even about the league. I'll tell you what it's about. I I think it's just, I don't want to say luck, it's skill. George McPhee in Vegas and what he did. There's just so many shrewd moves in a row.
Yeah.
And even if Seattle can pull off like half as many stunts, they'll have a great year. But boy, the way that whole thing fired off, I don't think you can bottle that. You can call me, maybe they'll go right to the Cup final. But I'm sure here's the thing. I'm sure they'll have a quality club, because I think the league is smart to say, okay, you can protect 7 skaters, or what is it, 7, 3, or 1, or you can protect 8 skaters and a goalie, something like that. It's not like expansion teams of yore where they really had nothing but scraps. I think there'll be some good players again. Hey, for $650 million, they better be able to pluck some good players, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That being said, do you think McPhee left his fingerprints so deeply embedded on the Washington Capitals, that's why they continue to roll like they do?
Well, look, he was there a long time. He did a good job, but you've got to give the new regime credit as well. Look, I'll use the Ducks as an example. Brian Burke, when they won the Cup, he gave a tip of the cap to Brian Murray and said he's the guy who drafted Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry, right?
Yeah.
But Brian Burke was the guy who brought in Scott Niedermayer and took Chris Pronger out of Edmonton and all those things. So, the new regime in Washington deserves credit too.
So if you're a Pittsburgh fan, what can you expect from Brian Burke in Pittsburgh? Because they already have a pretty strong core.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even expect them to have as many standing points as they do right now. But I think that between Hextall and Burke, you're going to have a club with a strong identity that plays a real strong brand of hockey. I don't know if they do anything this year. I like their Jeff Carter deal. I don't think it's going to put them into Stanley Cup contention. But if you want to add a piece, because Evgeny Malkin is out, I know Carter. Look, Carter can play center too, and he's got a hell of a shot. He's one of those great 2003 draftees. I don't think they win the Stanley Cup, but hey, why not take a flyer on Jeff Carter and see how good you really are? But Brian Burke is loath to do too much at the trade deadline, and so I don't think that. I think anything's going to happen with the Pittsburgh Penguins will happen in the summer.
It's interesting that was the only move that they had made during the trade deadline. I'm a Penguin fan at heart, born and raised in Pittsburgh originally.
You make a lot of mistakes on deadline day. You can make a lot of mistakes on deadline.
Well, I question, I live in the heart of Capitals country. So that being said, I've had conversations over and over again already about moving on from Verana, Panic, 1 and a 2 for Mantha. I'm baffled by that. And probably 1 out of every 8 or 9 people I talk to like the deal.
Well, here's the thing. I think that it's the kind of a deal. It's a kind of a deal where they're looking at Ovechkin in the twilight of his years, and he's going to get a new deal. And you can call me a year or 2 from now and tell me I'm all wet, but there's going to be a stall, and it's going to come to a screeching halt for his production. Make no mistake about it. I saw Teemu Selanne score as many points per game after the age of 35 as he did before the age of 30. And I know that for a few years, I think Ovechkin will still be good. But this is it. If you want to win another Stanley Cup, it's got to happen in the next year or 2, probably. I think by the time 38, 39 years old, 40 years old comes along for Ovechkin, something will put the brakes on some of this. And that said, he may be the greatest goal scorer we've ever seen, but age is age. And so, you know what? This is a club. Actually, this is one of the clubs where I would say, you know what? If you want to give up a number 1 pick, go ahead. You've got a big fat Stanley Cup ring on your finger, and you're looking at the end of Ovechkin's years. What the hell?
Yeah.
What the hell? Anthony Mantha can play. He's been on a lousy team. and he can play. So he's a big boy too.
So if you had your choice, though, would you take Dylan Larkin or Anthony Mantha?
I don't think I have a choice. I don't think Detroit was going to cough up Dylan Larkin.
Okay. I like, personally, I like Larkin better. I would throw all those chips in for
I don't think
Larkin.
they're giving him away.
No, he's a centerpiece for them going forward. And I think Verona, watching Capitals throughout the course of the season and, in the playoffs, I think Verona really is a guy for them that they may miss down the road significantly. Sure. Hey, what led you down the path of doing media, and who's been instrumental on your career at this point?
You're not okay. Well, you're not going to believe this, but actually, one of the big impacts on my life was my former career acting and doing voiceovers. And I'm going to make a long story short.
Okay.
But there's a band out of Buffalo called the Goo Goo Dolls.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I've been very good friends. I haven't seen him in a long time. He moved back to Buffalo. We're longtime friends with Robbie Tackett, who was the bass player. He's a founding member, guy with the long hair.
Yeah.
And he, around the year 2000, for my voiceover career, he's taught me how to edit audio. All this stuff you see, Pro Tools and all the stuff you see on your computer now, this was new to most people. This was very new in the late 90s.
Okay.
I had no idea what it was, but he taught me for my voiceover career how to edit things, how to record my voice. He gave me an extremely expensive microphone, which I would never be able to afford. It was one of theirs. It belonged to them. And he taught me how to edit. And along the way, I had this hockey radio idea since I was a kid.
Okay.
And before there was such a thing as podcasting, I figured out a way to record a phone, record myself, have it sound like it was on broadcast. And then I put it up on the internet when everybody started getting those Ethernet cords.
Yeah.
We used to have the dial up.
Yeah, I remember. Sure.
Okay. Well, I was renting time on radio stations in the early 2000s. And when the internet, when everybody got broadband, because nobody could hear my little web shows with the phone thing. Yeah. Once everybody had broadband, I said, I don't even need to rent time. I can take these audio shows and I can put them up on the web. People can click and listen to them. And Robbie had done me a favor by showing me how to edit and giving me a mic that Howard Stern would use. Okay, the top broadcasters would use things like $4,000, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I still have it. And so long story short, I said, I've got this hockey idea. I started doing long magazine kind of shows like you're doing.
Yeah.
Like stuff that was not about last night's game, but I would talk to authors. I would talk to players. I would talk to Mike Emmerich, Bob Miller, Andrzej Kopitar, earlier than that, Mike Barnett, Pierre Maguire, Eddie Olczyk. I would call them up. They didn't even know what web radio was. There was no such thing as podcasting. And this is around 2002, 3, 4. And I said, come on, just come do an interview with me. And Stan Fischler, people like this. So what happened was I was getting thousands and thousands of hits. The thing was I was working for free, but I had credentials to the Kings. I had credentials to the Ducks, and I had credentials to all the minor pro in Bakersfield, Long Beach, San Diego, and I worked my ass off. In 2006, the phone rings, and the Ducks call and say, we want you to be the post-game radio host. We see what you've been doing on the web. And I've been there for 15 years.
Yeah.
But it was before there was podcasting.
Yeah, so kudos to you.
I was ahead of my time. I didn't even know it. And so here we are. But I produced it all on my own. I was a little too late in life. I wasn't going to look, I was already in my 30s. I couldn't go do, play-by-play in Topeka, Kansas and work my way up. That wasn't even real.
Sure.
But what I could do is I could broadcast and do like a magazine format show. And so I created it. And then they called with duck calls saying, we see what you've been doing on the internet.
That's awesome. Do you do duck calls from your house right now, or do you have a studio that you go to? Are you allowed?
I do duck calls from AM830 KLAA and also, well, actually I do it from Honda Center.
So, okay.
Yeah. I have a remote unit and I have a home studio when I need it, but it's from Honda Center.
So you're live right now. There's no stay
I'm up in the
home.
press box. I'm up in
Okay.
the press box at Honda Center. It's all live, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if they were keeping you home still. I know,
Oh.
listen to some broadcasts. I hear guys talking about being in one location, watching it on a monitor and calling the game.
You know what's funny about all that? When I in 2002, 3, 4, I used to have my wife put the kids in a wagon when they were real little, and I say, "Give me 25 minutes. I got to record Mike Emmerich."
Yeah.
And then I would go in the bedroom. I had things to muffle the sound, and I would sit at my desk, and I would record the show. And she knew to come back in like 25 minutes because I was done recording, and that was it.
That's amazing.
Quiet was the big. But the funny thing now is all these people are like, "Oh, I'm at home. I'm at home." I'm like, "Whew." I mean, it just blows my mind because I used to just be like, I hear people, they're on the air and the dog is barking. That was my nightmare. That was my absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
So,
I've had some podcasts like that. Let me just tell you. Hey, what's going on?
Awful sound. Here, you want to see something?
Yeah.
Okay, you see this red thing next to the stones?
Yes.
These are called auto-mute sheets. Anybody who does this stuff at home, get yourself some of these auto-mute sheets. This is not a paid commercial endorsement, but for $75 a pop, it will keep the dog barks from getting into your room. So just a little something from your old pal, Josh.
That's perfect. Thanks, Josh. I always take any tips that you'll give for free. Thank you so much. Hey, let's talk Ducks a little bit. Man, this team is in a downward spiral. It just doesn't seem like it can come out of it. I went and looked. I love trade deadline. I watched trade deadline. Nothing really went down with them. I thought they would move some guys to try and free up some space and make some moves in the offseason. Talk a little bit about what's going on with that organization. It's crazy.
Well, there's a lot of things, for 3 straight seasons now, the goals have dried up, and that's a problem. I guess we could start with the veterans. I first of all, Ryan Getzlaf, I was convinced would not be leaving here. Number 2, the interesting one, Rickard Rakell, considering he's making about 3.7 or 3.8 for a couple more years, I thought maybe he would go. Silverberg and Henrique are at about 5.6, 5.7 for a few more years than that. So I had a feeling they'd be hard to move. The Rickard Rakell not going anywhere kind of surprised me, but if Bob Murray wants a high price for Rickard Rakell, I don't blame him. His production has declined, but I don't blame him. The interesting one was John Gibson, because, look, if things turn around for the Ducks, you can throw all these numbers out, all the goaltending numbers between Ryan Miller and John Gibson. These are all these are all a false positive. I wouldn't even look at the goaltending numbers for the Ducks. Both of their goaltenders have played excellent hockey. I thought maybe John Gibson would yield big stuff at the deadline. But if they turn the corner, they've got one of the best goaltenders you could possibly want in John Gibson. And, like I said, don't even bother with these statistics because this is a hard team to play goal on. Going from there, this is a defense under a lot of pressure. Let me say this. I hear a lot about Shea Theodore in Vegas, okay?
Yeah.
Or even, and no disrespect to Victor Hedman, he's on Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
If Cam Fowler was on the Vegas Golden Knights, what do you think his numbers would be? He's one of the best skaters in hockey. He can shoot. He's a very good number 1 or number 2 defenseman. Our defensemen have been under such pressure, and our goaltenders have been under such pressure, always playing 1-goal games, never really crushing anybody. How creative can you be as a defenseman if it's always a 1-goal game? A lot of times, you need to be up like 3 goals, 4 goals, and you can rock and roll a little better. Our defense under a lot of pressure. So there's a lot of question marks in Anaheim that have continued. So
is this a coaching thing? Is this a leadership thing? What is this a GM? Because you just dropped a bunch of names of guys that can play hockey. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, well, look, here's what I think. I think right now, I think Dallas Eakins deserves another year's shot. As far as the GM goes, I think that they're kind of he's on his fourth coach, and I think he has the ownership behind him, and and I'm pretty sure he'll be back. But I got to tell you, I mean, things have got to change, and I think there's a few things happening. Is first of all, Bob Murray picks the ingredients, okay, and he knows he's responsible for that. I don't think Dallas Eakins' message is that complicated for the players to digest. I think that the veterans on the club have been subpar this year. And I think that, Silverberg, Henrique, Getzlaff, and Raquel have not produced what they need to produce. And, so there's a problem right there. But I would suspect that Murph and Dallas Eakins will be back. And hopefully some players like Max Jones, Max Comtois, Trevor Zegras, Jamie Drysdale take another step up next year. But there's no question. The question marks aren't just for the coach or the GM or the players. There's a combo here. And unfortunately, you can't keep going with this combination of question marks. So, hopefully things change.
They're in a tough division, though. I mean, let's face it.
They're all tough.
Yeah.
All divisions are tough.
Yeah.
All
I don't know. I mean, San Jose, that's a meat grinder out there, just like it is everywhere else. But it just seems like the style, the size, the physicality that they play out there is a little bit different than some other places. I
do hear that from players. But I'll tell you what, do you want to try to knock off the Islanders and the Capitals right now? I mean, I don't know. It's look, you're dealt with the hand you're dealt. And I just, we'll see if the Ducks can straighten this out, because it's, I think that there's a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people on the Ducks who are probably feeling some heat, and I think that in the fall, I think that coming out of the gate, things will have to noticeably change.
It could be worse. It could be the Sabres, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
Unfortunately, anybody in the minors that can make that jump and give them a boost next year.
Oh, you've already got Trevor Zegras, who's been up in the NHL, and now he's playing center in the AHL. They're going to bring him back. I'm sure they're going to bring him back soon. Jamie Drysdale on defense has been a blessing. The blessing there is that they had no OHL to send him back to, and he just turned 19. So in this pandemic, the only blessing has been that they've had to keep him around, and he's phenomenal. I mean, this is a kid who is really ready for the NHL at a very young age. And, the Ducks are smart to keep their players in the AHL as long as they can. But boy, it's been undeniable that he belongs in the NHL. So, and then, look, I think Max Jones, Max Comtois, Troy Terry, I think the Ducks have a lot of good young players, but the word potential is not one that any fan laying down money for tonight's hockey ticket wants to hear for too long. You can sell potential for a season, but at some point it either works or it doesn't.
Hey man, look, I'm a Pittsburgh Pirate fan by heart, born and raised in Pittsburgh. You want to talk about potential and prospects? I've been living that for 25 years. That's all I've heard. So I get it. Hey, let's get your crystal ball out. Tell me who's going to win. Tell me who's going to win the up in Canada in the north. Tell me who's going to win out east. Tell me who's going to win out west, and what it's going to look like in the south.
Okay, let's start in Canada.
All right.
I believe the Toronto Maple Leafs are gonna break out of there. I think they're going to have a good playoff season, and I think they may be even more surprised by what they have in Jack Campbell. They picked up Nick Foligno, who's a depth guy. That's a good depth guy. One thing they didn't do on trade deadline day is upset their apple cart in their top six. Yeah. So Nick Foligno's a nice addition. Ben Hutton is a very, very solid defenseman who came from Anaheim and is very reliable. But I think the Leafs are finally ready to do something, even if it's just even just getting out of their division. I think they'll be in the Final Four. Okay, in the East, I'm going to go with the New York Islanders. I say the Islanders do it again. I think it's going to be absolutely a grind against the Washington Capitals, and I'm inclined to say Capitals, but I'll say Islanders for no good reason other than I like Kyle Palmieri a lot, and I like Barry Trotz a lot. But if the Capitals did, it wouldn't surprise me. So I think it's the Islanders there, and then in the is it the Central, right, with Tampa?
Yeah, I think that's what they call it. The
Tampa wins. Tampa wins. That's all. Tampa wins. I know Carolina's good. Florida is solid, but Aaron Ekblad is a big loss. I think Tampa is going to dominate. They just brought in David Savard like they needed him, and I think the Tampa Bay Lightning will cruise right out of that division. And then in the West, it's the Colorado Avalanche in a landslide. An avalanche and a landslide.
Yeah.
I know Vegas is good. Colorado's better. They're a lot better. And they might even be better than the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I'm going to say Colorado topples the Tampa Bay Lightning for the Stanley Cup. Colorado is ornery. They have a lot of skill. They have a lot of depth. And their superstars can hit. And guys like even Rantanen and Landeskog have no problem going right to the top of the crease.
Yeah.
And when you're willing to do that, you're good. So I'm going to say that, and then never mind, Cale Makar, and it goes on and on and on. Sam Girard. I have to laugh at that Matt Duchene deal when I think of what they pulled. It's interesting, but anyway.
And I haven't even heard Duchene's name this year. I swear to God.
He's the most overrated player in hockey.
I follow hockey to a T, and this whole season, never a thing about that guy.
Yeah, well, you remember when Joe Sakic was on the firing line and he was going to have to trade away their big superstar, Matt Duchene. Well, look what he's pulled. Aside from other players, he ended up drafting Cale Makar and Bowen Byram, who's injured right now. Sam Girard and then Bowen Byram. And
yeah,
I think Sakic's done a great job. And now you've got a guy like Jonas Donskoy, who was expected to break out. He's finally broken out. Nazem Kadri's solid. Burakovsky's solid. Nichushkin could score a little more, but he's a big guy and he does score. It's a very formidable club, and now you've got Deben Dubnyk backing up. I think they're going to crush everybody.
I like that team. I've liked them for a long time. My favorite player out there is McKinnon, though. He's just exciting to watch.
When he steps on the ice, it's it's like you kind of prick up your ears and go, oh my gosh, look at this guy. It's a little like McDavid. Like when you see McDavid hop on the ice, although McDavid's on another level, but McKinnon's up there. And when you see McDavid, it's like a jolt. It's like a smelling salt. It's like, my God. And then McKinnon is a big guy who can really move. And so I think Colorado.
I got to be honest with you, though. My guy in Edmonton is Draisaitl.
Well, he won the Hart, so
yeah, it's my guy up there, man.
Pretty good.
He's just so fun to watch play too. He just sees things and I know Connor McDavid makes things happen, but until Connor McDavid gets into the playoffs and gives it a push, I'm not gonna hang it on him. But there's no expectation for Draisaitl from that perspective, so that's why he's my guy up there.
Talk about the Buffalo Sabres. I have a feeling that Sam Reinhart went 2 overall, and Leon Draisaitl went 3.
Yeah,
and I have a feeling that's one they wish they could do over.
Reinhart's good though, man. Reinhart can play hockey. You don't think?
I think he can. I just think he's got a lot to prove, and I don't know. The Buffalo is a bit of a graveyard these days. I never thought it'd be a graveyard for talent, but there's something wrong there.
Hey, I know time is really tight for you, and I really appreciate you giving me your time, but I want to do one final segment. I call it We Just Gotta Know. Give me some of the best calls you had post-game, some crazy stuff you've heard.
Okay. All right, well, years ago when the show started, there used to be a caller by the name of Sam from Tarzana, and Tarzana is a suburb here in the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah.
And so Sam would call up, and it was when he had George Peros, and he would talk about who George Peros needs to fight next, and he always had a fight card for George Peros, and it was interesting. I'll just tell you a story. One day I had Sam come in to the studio one day, and I said, "What do you do for a living?" He says, "I'm a truck driver." He says, "The cost of living in Los Angeles is utterly crazy. I'm paying over this is 15 years ago. I'm paying over $2,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment." I said, "Sam, the next time you're on the road, go look in the local newspaper of any town in America not named Los Angeles or New York, and go look and see what everybody's paying for a 2-bedroom apartment." I never heard from Sam again. I think Sam is.
Yeah. Can you blame him?
Oh, no.
Can you blame him?
No, not at all. And I've had other ones. Here's the one I like. I have a guy who calls, and it's a bit of a high-pitched voice and stuff. And every time he calls, he wants to know, like, he'll name a player, he'll name like a goaltender. He'll say Ryan Miller. And what's Ryan Miller's record against this team? Like, I know this off the top of my head. Like, off the top of my head, I'm just going to know his whole historical record.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then once in a while, someone calls, maybe they, sound like maybe they've had a couple too many, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
But, and then finally, I'll finish with this. Phil Esposito was on my show very early on. And then one day I called him back and I said, "Phil, come on back on the show. I got a show Saturday night." And he says, "Now, what time is that going to be Eastern time?" And I said, "It'll probably be about 11 o'clock Eastern time." He goes, "Do you know how drunk I'm going to be Saturday night at 11 o'clock? And I said, "Phil, it would be my prayer that if you're drunk, you call my show. If you're drunk, call my show. That would be the best show, you calling in drunk." So there's always interesting people.
Did he call you?
No. For his sake, it's probably best.
Oh, he'd have spilled the beans on a whole lot of stuff. You could probably ask him anything.
No, I would love it. I would love it.
Hey, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Best of luck to the Ducks going forward. I know it was a tough season for them. I hope they shake things out over the summer and they give you better days ahead. And keep sporting that Red Wings jersey. They're going to come back around too, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. And listen, call anytime. This was hell of a good time. So anytime you want, I'm right here.
I appreciate it.
So sit right back. We're going to tell you a story of heroes and warriors who played for the glory. They're about to see it in your stadium chair. We know all your teams and we can go on for days. It's game time from the original. Highlights and playoffs and very special guests. It's game time on the original Sportscast show by the best.